Hey guys, welcome to the Sua Sponte podcast. I'm Ken Harper, your host, and today is with me retired General Joe Votel. So, sir, I'm just going to give the guys a quick rundown. So, at one point, your first introduction to Ranger Regiment was as the planning and liaison officer, and then you were the XO and LNO in 175, and then you were the 175 operations officer. 1st Battalion commander, and then you were the 12th commander of the Ranger Regiment, and you were also the 212th 4-star general.
Thanks, Ken. You got it.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add or let the guys know as something memorable that stood out to you and all the great accomplishments you accomplished?
Well, when it comes to the Rangers, I mean, I had an opportunity to be a part of Operation Just Cause, our invasion of Panama in 1989, early 1990. And then when I became the regimental commander, in the late summer of 2001. Of course, we all know what happened. Within about 45 days of that, 9/11 occurred. And so I had the honor of kind of being the regimental commander when we went to Afghanistan for the first time, and when we went to Iraq in 2003. So it was definitely a really interesting time to be in the Ranger Regiment. Very transformative period of time.
Yeah, you definitely had to set the standard for GWAT and all that.
Yeah, so it was great.
Yeah. So what have you been doing since you've retired from the military?
So I retired in 2019 after serving as the U.S. Central Command commander, and my wife and I moved back to St. Paul, Minnesota, where we're all from, and we live in the Twin Cities area here, and we have a great setup, and love being back here. But I've been, I've run a nonprofit organization for about 3.5 years. I do some board work. I do some advising and consulting. I'm a graduate of West Point, so I do some work up at West Point with the Combating Terrorism Center, which had a very, very big ties to my service in the Ranger Regiment and in the Special Operations community. And I do some work with the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., kind of promoting relationships between the United States and different countries of the Middle East. And then I'm involved in a few nonprofit organizations. Organizations like Service to School, which really focuses in on providing educational opportunities for enlisted veterans. I'm on the board of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation, which has as its goal to build a national monument in the mall in Washington, D.C., right in between the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial. I'm doing some work with a couple of other nonprofits, Freedom House, which promotes democracy and democratic values around the world, and the Center for Ethics and Rule of Law up at the University of Pennsylvania, which promotes ethical behavior in national security circles, and it does a lot of work in that area, and a couple other things there. So Ken, I try to keep myself pretty busy, frankly. And I found that's kind of worked for me. I think I had a lot of gas in the tank when I retired, so I was looking forward to being busy.
Yeah, it sounds like you didn't miss a step.
Yeah.
So what do you do on a daily basis to stay mentally alert still?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's a great question. One of the things I think I developed a habit when I was in uniform. Even when I was in the Rangers, of trying to be disciplined in my reading and staying up to date on things. So I have a series of things every morning. I get up, I'm an early riser. I get up and I kind of go to a number of different trusted sources of news and information that I kind of look at every day to kind of keep myself updated and aware of what's going on. I think that's really important to stay engaged in that. I do watch some stuff on TV. I look at some stuff on the internet. I read a lot with that. So I've got a pretty broad set of information sources that I go to kind of keep myself updated and alert to what's happening out there. And that I find stimulates me a lot. I read a lot particularly on leadership topics. I do a lot of reading in this particular. I've always been interested in this, being out of uniform has really provided me an opportunity to continue to do that. I listen to a number of podcasts. I'm pretty varied in terms of that. So I'm just list some things that are just interesting, some things that are more pertinent to the work that I'm doing. And I do a little bit of writing. I've not written a book or anything, but I do write articles and I interact with folks. And so I try to do things that kind of stimulate me mentally and keep me engaged in the things that were interested me when I was in uniform, and now that I can continue to pursue, in my retirement. And I found that that's really helped me stay engaged and stay aware and alert of what's happening in the world around me.
That's good. What do you do on a daily basis to continue to stay physically fit?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a real challenge for people when they retire, because sometimes when they step away from the military life, they think they don't have to do that anymore, and in fact, it becomes actually more important. So I was a wrestler in high school, and I also played football. In order to cut weight from football, so I could wrestle at a weight that I could compete at, I had to develop a fitness routine. So I had something at an early age. I became kind of a runner. When I came in the Army back in 1980 and the early 80s and 90s, the Army and the military in general really valued people that could run and do stuff like that. Probably overvalued it, frankly, but that was always kind of a strength for me. I think I was able to balance it, and I made fitness a priority for me then, and I do now, frankly. So I have a regular routine every morning. I get up early. I kind of get myself situated and aware of what's going on. I've now got kind of a fitness center in my home, so I don't have to go any place. I have no excuse. I can do it. I can do it all right here. I do a lot of cardio work, and then I usually do some kind of strength training. Sometimes it's rowing, sometimes it's weights. But Ken, as you know, at a certain point, it certainly is about physical strength, but it's also about mental strength. For me, it's an opportunity to think. It's an opportunity to kind of clear my head and kind of get myself set for the day. I always had the view that, the early morning is the one part of the day that you can actually control before things start getting in the way, before other people start taking your time away. And so you got to make the most of it. So getting yourself informed, taking that time to do PT is really important. And I think that, and you got to make it a priority. You got to hold yourself to it as you move forward. And I think I've been successful in doing that. I don't run as fast. I don't lift as much. I don't ruck like I did before. But for a 66-year-old guy, I think I'm doing okay right now.
Yeah, it's good. And like you said, it is easy to get away from that when you separate from the military, because you don't feel like you need to attain to that anymore. But it's still a good routine to have. It's good to stay healthy. And I think it is part of that, mentally alert is just being on edge and working out.
Yeah, one of the key traits of being mentally alert is being disciplined. Disciplined about your life, disciplined about the things you do, disciplined about how you take care of yourself, disciplined about how you manage your relationships. And that's something that all of us experienced in the Ranger Regiment was the importance of discipline. And it wasn't just wearing a sharp uniform or wearing your braid correctly or something like that. All those small things add up, and they really make you think about the value of a disciplined life. And for me, that's made the difference, and it's been really, really important to me. And I've tried to impart that on a number of others as I've kind of come in contact with them.
Well, and it's nice too, early in the morning, to have those little routine things where you feel like you're checking things off and getting things done, and you're accomplishing things. It just kind of gets that positive ball rolling forward.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
What are some things that you do now to stay morally straight?
Yeah, great question. You gotta look at all dimensions here of us as Rangers and now as American citizens out here. So, I think one of the most important things is you got to have people in your life that help you stay grounded. And I definitely do. My wife was my high school sweetheart, and we've been married 44 years. So she's a great source that that keeps me grounded, and doesn't allow me to holds me accountable for the things I do and that I don't do, and it reminds me where I came from. And it's really important to have people like that in your life. And I'm very fortunate to have my wife as one of those. But I have others. I grew up in a big family, and most of them are back here in the Twin Cities. I have 8 siblings, and they're mildly impressed with the success that I had in my military career. But they're always very, very quick to remind me that of the 9 children my mom and dad had, I'm just number 6, and that's important. I think it's important to have people around you that ground you, that you can talk to, that will tell you the truth. And I think when you read a lot of leadership books, you'll find that that's kind of a common thing, is this idea of somebody that can be a truth teller, can be a whisperer to you. It's really important I think, to have that in your life. And I think it does help keep you grounded, and that, I think, keeps you moving in a morally straight direction. I think it's also important to focus on important stuff. In my retired life, I mean, it's easy to do in the military or in the Rangers, because everything you do is important, or you wouldn't be doing it. So you're focused on it. But when you get out of the military, some of that direction, that's missing. And what you have to do is you have to find things that are important to you, important to others who are important to you, and important to our communities. As I tried to select different jobs and things that I'm doing right now, one of the criteria that I always ask myself is this important? Is important to whoever I'm helping with this? Is important to me? Do I care about that? I think it's important to really to think through those things and do things that have meaning and value in your life. And I think that does help you keep grounded. I'm a practicing Catholic. I have been my whole life. I think finding a spiritual outlet, I think, is also an important opportunity for it. I'm not overly devout or anything else. I try to get to mass every week and do what I'm obligated to do within my particular faith here. But that's been an important part of my life, and it's continued to be important in my own retirement. And it's given me a way to think about things and ground myself in basic values and traits that I think are important to me. So I think there's a lot of ways you can stay morally straight. For me, those 3 things right there: finding people around you that can keep you grounded, trying to focus on things that are important, and then trying to find a way to stimulate your spiritual, mental, emotional aspects of your own life.
Well, congratulations on 44 years. I mean, that's amazing. That's a very unique testament that not everybody has.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky in terms. I've been pretty lucky throughout my whole career. I had my my last sergeant major that I had, Bill Thetford, who, by the way, is a Ranger, and then went over to was in the special ops community and did some pretty cool jobs there. We were together for 8.5 years. So there's another example of keeping somebody around you who can keep you grounded and tells you the truth about yourself and about what you're doing here. And to me, it's this idea of longevity and continuity in your life, and looking for ways to preserve that, I think, is important. And that starts with making good decisions about who your partner is going to be, your partner for life, your people that you surround yourself with, and in your professional and personal lives. Those are really important. Those are really important decisions that every ranger, every individual makes somewhere along the line.
Well, and one thing you talked about was truth and how it matters to you what you do now, and does it truly matter to you? You also acknowledged, that you're a practicing Catholic. What are some things that your being Catholic helped you to parse out truth, or does on a daily basis, or even helped you in being a leader?
Well, I think, it isn't just limited to being a Catholic. I mean, I think anybody that, that practices or has a spiritual side right there. I mean, being spiritual, I think, is based in this idea of faith, having faith in something, whether that's in your fellow man or in some divine being or something, something else that, that personally appeals to you. To me, it's about having faith, even if it isn't it isn't immediately obvious to you, in your own life. It's about having beliefs and things that are important, and in values that are really important. And in my experience, I grew up. I went to Catholic grade schools. I went to a Catholic high school. My parents were very serious about that, and all nine of us did that in my family. And I think it put us on a really good path. And it was my experience, and I think it served me well. And it's always kind of kept me grounded. So, and when I had difficulties in my military career, when I was second guessing myself, you can kind of fall back on some of that, some of the ability to reach out to your God, or your whoever provides that spiritual strength for you, and use that as a source of solace, as a source of reason, as a source of confidence that there's something bigger, better out there. And that did it for me. And it's been an important part of part of my life. And I don't think to be a good leader, you're not required to go to church or be any particular religion. I think what I'm advocating is that you have to think about the wholeness of your person. And we've just talked about being mentally alert, about being stimulated mentally, and being sharp with your mind. We talked about the importance of taking care of your bodies and what that means. Just sustaining yourself, for not just for yourself, but for others around you. And then, of course, leading a life that you can be proud of, that others are proud of, and that is values based, and is about not just making yourself better, but making those around you and the communities in which you live in better places to be for everybody. We don't derive any particular benefit from that, but that's kind of what we do. And to me, that's the importance of all this. All this kind of comes together, and you gotta kind of fill in all those different dimensions in different ways in your own life. And in many ways, it is an individual journey for people. But that's been my journey.
Yeah. What are some struggles that you've had since getting out, if you've had any?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think everybody struggles a little bit. I retired after 39 years in the military, and I had a very good career and had a lot of opportunities to do great things. So, by the time I left, I was ready to go. We were ready to move on and find out what was next in our life. So, so I didn't go through some of the struggles that I see some people go through in terms of this. I think it's important for people to be good with their service. Whatever you've done, if you did one enlistment, if you stayed for 10 years or 20 years or whatever it happens to be, that you have to be proud of that. And that was taken care of for me. I felt good about what I had done, and that was an important aspect. But Ken, when I talk to a lot of people, I do see people that struggle with that. So it's an important thing to be good with that. I think one of the things I did struggle with is that I do have a military outlook on life. I mean, we've been talking about Rangers here. When you grow up in the Ranger Regiment or Ranger battalions, you become accustomed with a certain way of life, a certain way of conducting yourself, a certain way that your day starts and ends, and everything in between with that. And those are not easy things to lose. And in many ways, that's a good aspect. But when you step out of the military, the vast majority of people that you are going to come in contact with don't have that experience, haven't had the same experience you have. So one of the things I've had to learn to deal with is to kind of put my own military experience in context and make sure that I'm not being overburdening with it as I approach others, whether it's been in some of my now civilian work or people in my own community or family that I deal with. It's taught me to be more patient. I've had to learn to be more patient. I've had to learn to listen more carefully. I've had to learn to appreciate that people come to the game with different experiences. I mentioned one of the things that I did is I led a nonprofit organization, And this organization was focused on business people and trying to get them to share their expertise from the business world with people in the U.S. government. And what it was a great organization called Business Executives for National Security. But I won't talk about that. But the main thing I took away from that was that many of these business people that I came in contact with, they were extraordinary leaders. And they cared about the same things that you or I would have cared about when we were in the Ranger Battalion or in the Ranger Regiment. About taking care of people, about doing what's right, about accomplishing the mission, about taking care of yourself, about taking care of your families and your organization. They cared about it. They just didn't have the same experience. So I think what I'm suggesting here is that, I didn't have a great appreciation for that. And I presume that maybe we were a little bit on an elevated plateau here because of the experience we had. But that's not the case. Others out there. And I had to learn to listen and observe and appreciate that much better. And that was an important aspect. I left as a senior officer. Things were, it was easy for me to prioritize things in my military experience. You knew what your boss was really focused on. You knew what the mission was, and you could stay focused on that. That it's a little more difficult on the outside and trying to prioritize the things that are important in your own life. One of the challenges I've had is I mentioned to you a number of things I'm doing, is trying not to get overcommitted. I've overcommitted myself a number of times, and I had to kind of back my way out. Some of that is, I think, maybe it's the Ranger in me who says I can do this, and so I continue to sign up for things. Some of it is things just sound interesting. I want to be a part of it, but I think prioritizing your interests and taking care of things like that, it's important. I guess the last thing is just trying to find meaningful ways to be helpful to military veterans on the outside here. There's lots of organizations out here. I've tried to get myself associated with a number of them, but try to really carry it forward and be helpful for people that are in uniform or making the transition. That's been a little bit of a struggle because there are lots of things out there. There are a lot of people want to help. It can be frustrating. They're trying to do great stuff here, but you gotta choose wisely in terms of things that you're doing. And for me, that's sometimes been a little bit of a struggle.
Was it easier for you when you were a senior officer to not overcommit, or did you have guys when you were overcommitted that could fill that slot?
Well, I had, I was a CENTCOM commander, so I had a staff who took care of me and managed my calendar and moved me from this place to that place. And I had a big staff of very highly qualified, joint professionals, who in many cases themselves were senior officers and NCOs who really got in really well qualified staff. So you can do a lot. On the outside, that does not exist. And so you end up, I manage my own calendar. I do all that. I do most of my own stuff right now. You got to learn to do that. So, stepping away from those kinds of things can be a little bit of a challenge. But in many ways, it can also be very liberating because, one of the things I learned is that I have 100% control over my own calendar. So the only person I can blame if I'm overcommitted or I'm doing something I don't want to do is me. And that's it's frustrating to me, but it's satisfying because I know I'm not going to do that again. I'll learn from that right away. And you really can control your own destiny here.
Is there anything you miss about Ranger Regiment?
Oh, I miss a lot about that. I've had several opportunities to go back. I've turned over command of the Ranger Regiment in 2003. And I retired in 2019. So there were 16 years that I was still in uniform that I still wasn't in the Ranger Regiment. And of course, we don't have many opportunities to serve after that, although I was in the Special Operations Committee, so I could stay around and touch them. And I've gone back and seen the Rangers a number of different times when I was in uniform. I've actually gone back since I've retired, and I'm just amazed at how adaptive, how innovative, how much that organization has risen to the challenge of what they needed to be for whatever the times called for. In 2001, when we went to Afghanistan the first time, the Ranger Regiment was a great organization. We were extraordinarily well trained, well equipped, no doubt the best in the Army. But the mission that we found ourselves in not long after going to Afghanistan was not necessarily the mission that we had trained for. We had to begin to change, and it took us a couple of years to do that. And my successor, General Craig Nixon, who took over from me in 2003, really saw a lot of that through. But then those that succeeded him continued to do that. That organization has changed. I'm not sure I can make it in there right now. They are stronger. They're fitter. They're just an amazing quality of people. I attended the 50th anniversary ball for 1st Ranger Battalion just a couple months ago down in Savannah. I got it with my wife and some other friends. I was so impressed with the young men that I met there and their spouses and their friends and family. It's just an extraordinary organization. I miss that. I miss the camaraderie. I miss that whole spirit that comes along with being in the Ranger Regiment.
Well, sir, thank you for your time. And like we always say, Rangers lead the way.
Rangers lead the way.